Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Nick Brown, the founder of Glappitnova, and I will be. Oh, well, here Diggy is just logged in. This conversation is all about um, how do you get motivated? Wherever this conversation may go, this is a perfect opportunity to bring talented strangers together through provocative questions. Since Diggy is logging in now, um, I will be blacking out my screen shortly, and let's go into this conversation by starting with Billy first. So, Billy,
Yes,
what does the notion of how do you get motivated mean? What does that mean?
that is such a good question, especially in times of quarantine and constraint and repeat. Um, I have always found I'm not one to just magically sort of make motivation up. I usually need inspiration from outside sources, so I look way beyond the norm to pull me out of my routine and rut, which this would be a perfect time to make an example of that. So sometimes it's just in story and in documentary and movies, songs, books, and actually creating story. You know, I'm editing a documentary right now, and that has really sort of motivated me to do more because it's pulled me out of my little constraints.
Got you. What about you, Catalina?
Yeah, so how do you get motivated? What is motivation, right? That's actually a really interesting question. I think it's different to what Billy said. It's different for everybody. And I am actually opposite of Billy. I wake up some days and I have all of this motivation. I have no clue where it comes from. And then some days it's just like not there. And so what I've done is really trying to figure out like what is it that gets my energy levels up, and so I'm able to actually access the motivation that I do have inside. And I think for a lot of people, if you actually end up noticing what you're doing every day, like writing it down and maybe being like, oh, that felt great or that did not feel great, you'll kind of figure out a flow that you're going through that kind of affects your motivation. And it's really interesting. So I think I don't know if there's like an exact definition, but I think it's just that energy to like get out there and really do whatever it is that you want to do.
Gotcha. Let's take a step back. How about we start with self-introduction? Maybe Billy go first, and then you, Catalina.
Okay, perfect.
Born and raised in the great city of Chicago, your hometown. I came up in the hospitality industry, working in restaurants, bars, and nightclubs. Put myself through college, U of I in Champaign, to Chicago Kent College of Law. Went to business school at HBS, all while building nightclubs, restaurants, and bars, and then sort of gradually moved into opening a marketing company, a creative agency, and then finally giving myself permission to do a lot of crazy one-off projects like film a documentary in the Philippines and you open up a restaurant in Nashville, and I've just been a little bit more open to new things.
Nice. You, Catalina?
Yeah, definitely. So Billy, like that sounds amazing. First of all, I'm like, wow. I'm like, what am I doing here? But yeah, so I'm Afro-Colombian, and so I actually emigrated from Colombia when I was 9 to Houston, where I am now. And then I went to school in Nebraska, of all places. I got a full ride. And yeah, I was like, okay, they're giving me money. I'm going to go. Perfect. And actually, that was like the best decision I could have ever made, because after that, I went to the Bay Area and I worked for companies like Johnson & Johnson, selling pharmaceutical products. I worked for Facebook, Twitter, Andreessen Horowitz, Asana, doing recruiting. And then recently, last year, I started my own professional development company, Catalyst Creation. And because I didn't have any student loans, I was actually able to do that quite quickly. And what's interesting about my story is that I've gotten fired like 3 times, laid off once. And so, it's a story of perseverance. It's a story of keeping going, still getting motivated as you're getting no's all the time. And so it's just really interesting, the fact that I'm able to share that with people.
Nice. Diggy, you're good to go now?
I'm good to go now. I'm sorry I had some technical difficulties there. We're good to go. We switched laptops. Billy and Catalina, thank you for joining. My name's Diggy Moreland. I'm like Billy. I'm here in Chicago as well. I heard part of the what you guys were talking about as far as motivation. You couldn't see me on the video. So I really like what I heard so far. Just as far as a little background of myself, I grew up in the south suburbs my whole life, went to U of I in Champaign as well. And then I took the opportunity to come back to Chicago, finally live downtown, and enjoy life as it is. And then now we're in this situation where we are now. So we're trying to figure it out. So I did get a chance to kind of listen as far as, like, obviously I came in with Catalina, says she wakes up with all of this energy as far as, like, what do I do with it? And then, obviously I heard of some of Billy's as well. One question I want to ask.
Catalina, you need to bottle that up. Get some of that.
I could just sell it.
Right now, especially, it's in demand. Like, wake up motivation.
If there was a time to, like, monetize that, this is the time.
This is it. Yeah. I think that your smile and your energy is vicariously just sort of like pushing it through the internet to people, and it's going to happen that morning.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's actually a really interesting compliment to get. Your energy is great, and it, like, actually is very impacting, because this is just who I am. Like, I'm not putting on a show or anything like that. It's just the energy that I get. And it's like, you almost don't know how do you monetize something that is, like, so natural to you, right? And make it actually be genuine, because I don't want to be out here being like, oh, like, hey, like, drink this, and you'll be like, all the teas or whatever. And so, I'm trying to figure all of that out, of just, like, how can I actually bring this light to the world and inspire other people to actually tap into theirs, because I think there's that in everybody. It's just sometimes hidden by everything. And right now, especially with, like, COVID going on, I think it just kind of piles everything on and it gets drowned out even more.
Yeah, I think what makes it interesting is just there's not a lot, at least for me personally. I wake up, if there's something I'm excited about doing, if there's something I really want to achieve, it makes it really easy to be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was telling one of my coworkers today, unprompted, I had a lot of good energy today, and I'm like, I'm in a really, really good mood. Typically, I'm in a good mood anyway, but I really woke up today like, let's tackle the day, good vibes. So my question, I guess we'll start off with Billy, not to put you on the spot. Has there ever been a time where you're not motivated, and how do you kind of get out of that funk?
I think for me, there are two life situations that are at the opposite ends. I mean, I've been through times right around, actually, before I went to U of I, where I went through some pretty rough times, and my dad and my brother got sick, lost everything, lost them early. It was tough. I was out and having to take care of the family on my own. And I got to say what's up to Ruben, because I'm a fan.
Go. Now we're on.
My mom is from the Philippine Islands. I've been back and forth my whole life.
No way.
And growing up as a tennis kid who really was not that great, but wanted to be great, and never had a Filipino, like, hero to look up on the tennis courts. And all of a sudden you're that guy, and here you are. Like, what? It's awesome.
That's crazy. So your mom's from the Philippines?
Yeah, I actually went back to the Philippines and filmed the documentary that's supposed to come out this May 1st on PBS. It got pushed back because of COVID, but I essentially went back because the last of my elders, two died on the same day.
Geez, sorry about that.
Here, and I went to go find out the recipes of my ancestors, and I filmed it, and it's going to come out. It's called Food Roots Philippines. Still,
that's awesome. I was just there in March. Actually.
Oh yes. Anyway, sorry to fan out. I apologize. I wasn't dodging.
No, that's awesome.
No, that's great.
There's definitely there's hardship that happens in life. There's trauma. There's tragedy. That was a time where I went from the most unmotivated to the absolute highest points of motivation. Through knowing what it was like to be, kind of poor and lost and with family tragedy. It, like, really motivated me to work as many as hours in the restaurant industry. And then there's a time where you're inspired and motivated, and sort of on the other side of my journey, here I am with a restaurant called Sunda that's in Chicago. That's Southeast Asian. It has some Filipino food, but it's from, all my travels to Japan, China, Thailand, Vietnam. and
Awesome.
and then inspired to take it south. And now we're in Nashville, and there's times on that high where you get unmotivated, because when you move and you move forward, you move away from what's understandable and what is controllable, and you move into a space of uncertainty, and you begin to do things that aren't what you normally do, and therefore usually you're not that good at them. So I find myself many times unmotivated in a rut. In like right now, I find myself, reading a lot of, having to do a lot of insurance stuff, and dealing with lawyers, and trying to get my 300 employees on unemployment, and working with the banks, and that's a very hard place for me to be motivated. And
For sure.
so unmotivated is a very common place in both ends of the spectrum.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome, man. That's pretty sweet. What's your restaurant in Chicago called?
It's called Sunda.
Man, Sunda. Okay, gonna have to check that out, man. Some Filipino food.
Yes.
Nice. Very nice. What's your favorite Filipino food?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. So it's usually crispy pata. I mean, it's
nice. I like that too.
With a
I
beer.
love that.
And by the way, we have our own versions of crispy pata, right? And all these different, in different cultures, and so
for sure.
Whenever I'm with people from a lot of different. Where did you say you were from, Catalina?
So I'm from Colombia.
Yeah. Well, like I just feel like everyone has their own version of what the pata is.
Fried anything is good in any.
Fried anything.
Everybody has fried things.
Yeah.
That's true. You can't make it taste bad. That's for sure.
No, I think it's really hard. Like
for
fried.
Sure.
Although I did try to make empanadas once, and the dough was not great. I fried it, and it was still not good. So I was like, okay, maybe. Like, I'll leave the cooking to Billy, and
that one's a little trickier, I think.
Ruben, you hopped in later, obviously. I don't know you. Obviously, Billy's familiar with you. I don't know if Catalina does. You want to kind of give us a quick synopsis of who you are, just a little bit of your background a little bit?
Yeah, so I play tennis professionally. I've been playing professionally since 2009, and I actually play college tennis at the University of Illinois, where Nick went to school. So that's where my connection is with him.
And me.
Oh, yeah? No
And
way.
Me. Yeah.
So fun fact, I was born in Macomb, Illinois.
That's close.
Wow.
I've never been there. Never once, like other than when I was born. And then I went to Colombia, but like I've never been back. And so it's really.
That's crazy. That's crazy. We went to Illini here, so.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So where are you at now, Ruben?
So because the tennis tour has stopped, I'm back home in Indiana where I'm from. I typically live in Indianapolis with my fiance, but she's actually in the Philippines, and she's kind of stuck there because there's no traveling.
Yeah.
So I was actually there playing. We played a team match against Greece the week before the travel ban started. So I finished the match, and I was like, dude, I got to get out of here just in case.
Yeah.
And because I was supposed to play a tournament. So I flew back to the States, and then the travel ban happened. They canceled all the tournaments. And because I was in Manila and there was a lot of cases of COVID there, I did a 2-week quarantine by myself in the apartment. And then after that, I started to try to practice. And then they closed all the courts in my area, basically. So I was like, man, I'm going to go back to my parents' house. They live an hour away, and they have their own court. So I was like, I'm going to go back home, see if there's anyone around locally that I can practice with. So I came back home, which was about a month ago, and there's a bunch of college players that live in our area, and their seasons are canceled too. So I'm just home practicing with them and trying to train and trying to figure out what's going to happen. So it's been kind of a crazy process, I'm sure, for everyone else too. Just the same, trying to figure this all out. So
sure. We've when you came in, we were talking about, like, obviously we're talking about motivation and things like that. So obviously you're at the point you're on tour. Tour stops abruptly. Now you have to essentially rearrange your whole life. You have to get back to Indiana. You have to find people to actually practice and play against. When something like that happens to you, how do you find the motivation to continue on when you're facing these odds?
I would say for me, like I have a very strong vision of what I want to do. Like probably my ultimate goal is to get to Wimbledon one day and to do really well in the tournament. I mean, win it, whatever you want to call it. I have a very strong vision of that. So thinking of those things still keeps me motivated. You know what I mean? Like we had the Olympics this year, and it's going to be next year, hopefully, and hopefully I'll have a chance to qualify for that. So those things, hopefully in my future, are the things that I wake up and keep me motivated. But obviously, like you said, we can't play this year, so I'm going to have to kind of switch gears a little bit. My coach and I have put together a really good training program. So I have kind of daily, weekly things that I'm accountable for and things I'm still trying to strive for. So that helps. But the thing that's tough is in tennis, you don't get paid unless you play, unless you're playing. So obviously, that's the thing that I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do if I'm going to stay home and coach as well. And do that and figure out something along those avenues or what else. But yeah, those are more of the things I'm dealing with. Motivation is never really the problem with me, but changing gears, obviously, and trying to be motivated to try to make money and try to figure out those things are a little bit tricky. So, yeah, to answer your first question, for me, the motivation is never too hard for me, you know?
Yeah, it seems like across all three of everybody else in the panel, it's like you have an end goal of what you want to achieve. You want to do this, and I know I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. Now, you missed it when we were talking with Catalina. She was saying every day, 7 days a week, Catalina wakes up, and she is motivated.
Wow.
All her years on this
Good
earth,
for you.
she's never not been motivated. So my question, Catalina, obviously we talked about bottling this up and selling it. That's not an option. What kind of advice are you going to give somebody to pretty much copy what you've obviously perfected over your years here?
Well, first of all, I have not perfected it. It's something that, it's a constant struggle, but I say motivation, but I really mean like motivation for what, right? Like I didn't say I'm motivated 7 days a week all the time to do, go crush it, kill it, all my emails, like talk to everybody. Like, no, I'm motivated to just be alive, right? And I think in COVID, it's so important for people to understand, like, and remember, you're alive. There's people who are dying every single day, not to put a damper on things, but I think, 40,000 people or 30,000 people have died already from COVID. And so it sucks that that's happening, and it sucks that people are at home, and it sucks. Everything in the world right now sucks, right? But when you wake up in the morning, you're alive. And that's what I focus on. And like, I'm like, great, what do I feel like doing today? Do I feel like, going and killing my emails and reaching out to everybody and being on social media? Or do I feel like watching Netflix? Or do I feel like reading a book or laying down? Or what do I feel like doing? Go do that. Because once you get to the point where you can do one thing that you actually want to do, then that creates like a chain reaction of like, okay, great, now I can go do this and I can go do this. And eventually you run out of things that you want to do, and then you do the things that you're avoiding, right? And just holding on to that every single day is what I try to do. So I don't know if I've perfected it, and there's days where I'm like, I don't want to do anything, but I remember the things that I want, that I like doing, right? I like dancing, for example. I like dancing. You'll see me on my Instagram just like dancing. And I'm like, I'll dance. I'm like, I don't feel like dancing, but maybe by dancing, I'll like get inspired and motivated to like do something else. So it's just a step-by-step, little thing by little thing.
I actually think you bring a good point, because it's almost like a trickle effect. For me personally, if I put down a list of things that I want to do, like if I check off one thing that I do, I'm like, all right, the momentum's there. Let's go on to the next thing. Let's go on to the next thing. And then before you know it, by let's say 1, 2 o'clock, I've gotten everything I've wanted to do. I'll ask Billy, is there any like tools, tips, tricks that you use maybe in your personal life or the restaurant industry or whatever, when I have a lot of stuff that needs to be done, to make sure they get done?
And before Billy answers, can I just like add one more thing to the want to do list?
Sure. That'll give me time to think of an answer. So
I think it's important to realize that like a to-do list should just be that. What do you want to do? Is it business related? Is it money related? Is it just taking care of yourself or taking care of your family? Like that can all be part of your to-do list, and people forget to put that because a to-do list sounds like you have to be super productive. That's not what that means. It's like, are you still taking care of all of the other things in your life?
True.
Yeah. So some of the tools that I personally use have a lot to do with just sort of mapping out what the day looks like relative to how I personally am. Like I'm not as great in the morning with respect to, hardcore details, but I like to just read and take in things within that first 2 hours. And I've realized not to book hardcore things in the morning. But then I basically build it out based on when I know I thrive best, and that just sort of happens really like midday, and then I just know that I get more output out of myself when it comes to more business related things. And then I also know, we have this creative agency, COACT, which is really it's basically a community of independent creatives across the country that collaborate. And so a lot of times what I am doing is I'm collaborating, planting seeds, and then backing out, and then allowing that creative process to happen, and then popping back in. And so in doing that, you begin to look at your week and strategically begin to place things. And I also block free time. That's another thing. That's just my weird situation. I'm not saying that it works for everybody, but like for me, if I don't block it, I won't get it. And then I'll just be angry at the end of the night. You know what I mean? That's when that bar comes in. It all mixes together.
I really like that. And I'm a big proponent. I block out my gym time because I don't
won't happen.
Don't throw a meeting between 12 and 1 because that's when I work out, and et cetera. Because if I miss that messes up the rest of my day, and it's probably going to change my mood. Ruben, I know you're probably on a different, being more sports focused, so obviously being an athlete. Is there anything you specially use as far as like maybe a training method or people that you work with or anything like that to keep you to get things done?
I'm kind of like Billy. I kind of thrive more in the afternoon, evening. Okay. I've always been more of a later guy, so I know that I want my practice and training to be in the afternoon. So, like, I typically wake up, whenever that is, and I do this like yoga / meditation thing for like an hour. So whenever I wake up, so I do that for an hour, and then I feel like that puts me in a really good kind of mind frame to start attacking the day. And then I get in the gym for usually like 2 hours, and then eat lunch, and then I train for like 3 or 4 hours in a row in the afternoon. So like by the time I know it, it's already like 7 p.m. So my day from 12 to 7 is really booked. But yeah, I for me, a lot of it is scheduling, knowing that that's when I peak. So I do all my training then, and then usually every day.
Cool. Dang. Living the dream, kid.
What's that?
Living the dream. I love it.
It is good.
I'm cheering you on.
I was thinking about that the other day.
The other
day. I was like, man, this is pretty good. It's pretty good what I get to do.
But I know it's hard. Trust me. I know it's the hardest thing physically and mentally, spiritually, and all of the above. But it's still pretty awesome for
sure. Thanks, man. I feel pretty blessed to get to do what I do. Like, I talked to my buddy in Chicago who works in real estate, and he's like, dude, I was telling my schedule, he's like, dude, you are living the dream. I'm like, I really can't complain. You know what I mean? But especially because I get to do what I like to do. You know what I mean? Play tennis. I've been playing tennis for a long time, since I was 3 years old. So it's my passion, and because I get to do it, I feel, for a living, I'm pretty blessed,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to ask questions to other people?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, good. So I feel like creativity plays a huge role in this platform and a lot of things that we're talking about. How are you creatively different in the way in which you play your game, or you proceed as a leader or an athlete? How are you uniquely different?
That's a really good question. I would say typically I'm kind of robotic in some ways, in that I think, being raised by Asian parents who, like typical, they tell you kind of how to do everything. Maybe the creative side of my brain isn't as developed. Like, I'm a robot. If you tell me that I need to do something 10,000 times one day, I will do it 20,000 times. I'm kind of wired like that. So, I read a lot. And to hopefully expand that part of my brain. But how am I different? That's a really good question.
Well,
I feel like as far as tennis goes, as my tennis game, I feel like I can do anything, not to be arrogant, but I can do anything with a tennis ball. Like, there's not one shot I feel like I can't hit. So it's like I can play every style. If you need me to do this style, I can do it. If I need to do this style, I can do it. So I would say what makes me different is, like, I feel like I can do it all. I can kind of do it all if I need to. Like, there isn't one thing that's really lacking, or there's a weakness. That's kind of what I think makes myself a little unique as far as that goes.
That's awesome. I love it. One thing I ask everybody across the board, do you feel like your level of motivation has changed as you've gotten older? So Ruben at 10, Billy at 12, Catalina at 15 or whatever. Were you always as equally motivated as you think you may be now? And whoever wants to answer, they can answer.
Yeah, I'll take the first question, I guess, or the first answer. I don't think my motivation has changed necessarily as my awareness of my motivation. So I think the fact that I know what makes me motivated and what demotivates me and what motivation is has changed for me. So I used to be a really high achiever, or well, I am still a really high achiever, I guess, but I really identify with that. Like, I'm an achiever. I can do all the things, kind of like how Ruben is saying, like, I can do it all. And, I got good grades and got scholarships and got all the good jobs and blah, blah, blah. And I really was like, oh, I'm motivated externally by all of those things. And what I realized is past 2 years after, kind of like Billy was saying, like, I lost everything. I lost, I got laid off, got out of a relationship, lost my apartment twice before all of this happened. I realized, like, all of the external stuff that was motivating me was no longer there. So the only thing that I could really rely on is, like, going inside and be like, okay, how can I still motivate myself to go and do all of those things when I'm not getting those accolades? So it's kind of the meaning has changed for me, not so much the amount, but the meaning.
Awesome. Billy, what about you?
I feel like, and I don't mean this in a weird way, but I feel like my motivation was much more intense when I was younger, because I had it was fueled by life or death, fear, and family was at stake, and I was very afraid of the future and the unknowns of what I was going to be or how I was going to make sense of supporting my family and all these other things. And my motivation, those closest to me know that my motivation was like fiercely. I look back at it and I'm like, wow. It was on another level, but it wasn't anything to brag about. It was just because I was really, 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 really scared, and I really had to work hard. Now my motivation isn't weaker. It's just I would say, like, where one was a big, bright, fiery color, this one's a little bit more colorful, in a sense that I'm more motivated to collaborate and do more. I literally just came off a 5-year community service sort of situation. I was appointed by President Obama to work on a couple different initiatives, and from the White House Bullying Prevention Task Force and the Asian American and Pacific Islander.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, right. And so my motivation was really great, right? Like, I had motivation to really help, and it really is what built this new company that isn't about me at all. It's COACT. It's a community of all sorts of people collaborating to do good things. So there's different types of motivation. It's not that one was better than the other, but earlier on, I think that's true for a lot of people when they get their first burst of, like, where they know that, like, they're going forward. And then when you sort of reach a couple of those things, you realize that the world's bigger and a little wider, and you begin to become more motivated to do, I think, things that you actually want to do, not the things you were forced to do. So that's my sort of different approach to that question.
I like it. Catalina, I think are you good? I think you have to go at 8.
I have to jump off, but I do want to hear Ruben's answer. I'll be late by like a little
Go,
bit.
Ruben, you got it.
It's okay.
I would say what motivates me has changed. You know, kind of when you're younger and you have the dreams and the goals of, you know, playing Wimbledon, winning big tournaments. What motivates you maybe is I want to be rich. I want to be famous. You know what I mean? And as you get older, or as I've gotten older at least, I've realized that a lot of that stuff doesn't mean a lot to me. And that's what's changed the most. And kind of what motivates me now is becoming a master. I don't know if that makes any sense. Is becoming a master of myself, becoming a master of my emotions, physically, mentally, emotionally, becoming a master of me, becoming the best possible player I can possibly be, maxing out all my potential. For me, that's what motivates me, not the other things. And I feel like if I do those things, I will achieve the things that I set out to do, but without even focusing on the reward. So that's kind of what changed. What's motivated me is very different than it was before, for sure.
Awesome. Catalina, sorry we kept you. I know you're late, but thank you so much for your answers and everything.
Yeah.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you.
Everyone, so thank you so much, and I will see
Great
you.
to meet you.
Great
Take care.
I won't keep you guys too much longer. I just have one question. And like you, Ruben, I'm with you. I think when you grow up, you're like, I want that car, I want a 10-bedroom house, whatever.
For sure.
And then you realize, like, dude, once you get that, you have to maintain it. You have to. There's a expenses that come with it. And you're like,
for sure,
rated. And I'm with you now. I'm more so like, hey, I just want to be content. I want to enjoy life.
For sure. For sure.
And I like the mastery portion of it. Like personally, I referee college basketball, and my goal is to work an NCAA, championship game, and then get to the NBA.
For sure.
That's my goal. I just want to get to that level of mastery. So
for sure.
The one thing I'll say to you guys, and I guess so we can wrap on this question: do you get motivated, or is there a person that motivates you, like that strives you? You wake every morning, hey, I want to get to, like the status that Agassi was at, or the status that XYZ is at, or for you, Billy, maybe another, entrepreneur or restaurant owner. Is there somebody that?
No, the Agassi thing is for me too.
Oh, okay.
Well, I love it.
I just want to play like Ruben, man. I just want to, I'm about to road trip up to Iowa or where are you at?
Indiana.
And
anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah. Go ahead, man. What were you going to say? Ruben, were you answering?
No. It's all you.
Oh, what was the end of the question?
Yeah, pretty much. Is there somebody that motivates?
Oh, yes. So sorry. So you threw me with Agassi. That's the problem. So, one of the things that drove this PBS documentary is that my Lolo, my grandfather in the Philippines, died when I was 22, and I heard such amazing things about his ability to take himself from this sort of poor little province and work his way into the big city of Manila and put himself through college and law school, and then become this great community leader. And I got his name as my middle name, and I never knew anything about him, but here I am with this gigantic family in the Philippines, and we go back every other year, but I just didn't know him. And so I always looked up to him, or the image of him, as this amazing, leader, inspiration, guiding light. But I didn't know. And so that was what I went back to sort of discover. So that was really cool. And I learned a lot of things that were actually on point with this, figure out my imagination of what I'd absorbed as a kid. But lately, I'll just say that a lot of the people that I'm getting a lot of inspiration and sort of motivation and learnings from is really, it's just so amazing. I mean, just just everyone has perspective, and you really can't listen to one person. In my opinion, I've just found that there's a tremendous amount of quantity and quality out there, and your gut by this time in our lives. It's gotten us to this point right here, which is what a blessing and what a great achievement to be able to talk to you guys. We have a gut and a spirit and a mind that has a lot to say about what we're ingesting, and then we can sort of navigate through that and pick the pieces that work for us in our unique journey. And so there isn't one person. It's gone from one person in the beginning of my life that I tried to live my life to emulate. And it's interesting, sort of discovering it in 19 through this documentary, but now feeling like, you know what, it's really about me now and how I choose to navigate all that information. And I think once you're quarantined and you're forced to sit in the uncomfortable sort of gray space, like that area that you can't leave, and you begin to get dumped on with all the info. If you can work on that navigation to decide what's right for you, to make part of your going forward, I think that's super interesting and makes it beneficial to listen to all voices, even the ones you don't agree with.
I love it. I feel I get that you can take parts of what you see, what you like, and make it your own. I guess you can wrap it up, Ruben. As far as you, is there something, someone that motivates you today?
I would say there's a few. I've been on this kind of mastery thing for about a year now. And, when I think about it, the people that I kind of look to are the people in other sports that really embody that mastery term. So I'm thinking guys like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, guys who dedicated their lives to becoming masters of what they do. Were all of them the most talented guys? Probably not. But they literally got every single ounce of potential out of themselves that they possibly could. So when they look back on it, they're like, man, I gave it everything. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I have for most of the time, but I felt there were some times when I was younger, I didn't do as good of a job at that, whether that be being immature or whatever. But I would say, especially those guys, I really am motivated by like seeing and hearing their stories. I read Tom Brady's book, I read Kobe Bryant's book, I read Michael Jordan's book. It's all about being a master in one sense or another. They're like, how do I get better? And honestly, that's where I'm at in my life. And those are the kind of questions that I ask myself every day. How am I going to get better? And I feel like what sparked that is hearing those guys' stories. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's what those guys mean to me.
I think that's the perfect way to kind of wrap this up. How do I evolve? How do I become better than I was yesterday? And realizing that's not going to come from like one source every time. You have to pull from different parts, and that's how we become better and stay motivated. So Billy, Ruben from the middle of Indiana, we definitely appreciate you chiming in and taking.
Thanks for having us.